you have 50 students in your classroom. Do you know what you have at all? Do you even know what you have at all? So, John, this is what I do. It's about reimagining the future for these ones. This narrative that's sold back then, okay, we tell ourselves, okay, want to get to university, the best scores are for engineering, for medicine, for, science, but the ones that are probably like at the bottom of the class, they're the ones who push to education. Facilitate that learning from them. It's called constructivist mindset in education. You know it already, but I'm just bringing it out through my questions. So the way we conceived STEM back then was STEM. We see the need first of all. You task the mind, engage the hands, and make a way. They are training, you are mentoring world changers here. Can you just for that 40 minutes in class? Give it your best, your place, go all out, mentor these ones. Thanks to tech, right? But now tech is now coming to take our holy grail, right? I mean, this is like our cheese. Don't move this cheese.
Welcome to this episode of Peel. On this podcast, we're peeling back on the inspiring stories within education and unveiling the future that is possible. We are telling the stories of those who make great things happen. Vion Dansu is a doctor of engineering and computing education. With a background in engineering and love for education, he has spent the last 10 years working within the STEM education field internationally as a researcher, programs developer, designer, and facilitator of professional development programs for STEM teachers. He has developed a teaching and research framework to ease the transition from deficit asset-based STEM education in sub-Saharan Africa. Hello, Vion. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, John. Glad to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, Vion, a great place to take off would be, who is Vion Dansu?
All right, so Vion Dansu, your husband and the father. That's what I love to be. That's my what's it called? Conspicuous identity. Over and beyond any other thing I do. All right, so I've been within the education space for about 10 years. Interestingly, I studied engineering, systems engineering at the University of Lagos, Nigeria. My first and second degrees were in systems engineering. So, but I think I'll get into that story later. I pivoted around 2015 into education. And ever since, I've gone on to learn a lot from people, teachers, students, and all of that, within the ed space. And that has struck a chord within me to really do more. The things I've learned over the years working with people, students, teachers, like I mentioned, policymakers, and stakeholders across the education spectrum has struck a chord within me to see that I think this is the space that I fit in the most. And on the back of that, in 2014, 2015, my friends and I, we co-founded STEM Ed Africa in Lagos, Nigeria, where all we do is just to enhance STEM learning for high school students back in Nigeria. So we've worked with teachers, we've done teachers training, NYC core members training, 2016, 2017. I believe I'm going to delve into that story later on. And that led me to my passion for STEM ed back in Nigeria, led me to coming for the PhD program right in the United States in 2020. And I did a program, it's a program I never knew about up until like maybe 2017. Engineering education. I never knew there was such a marriage. I never knew about that, And when I saw that, I was like, oh, this is, I think, the field that can host my passion. I didn't struggle while I was in engineering, to God's glory, while I was at Unilag. But I also I think I love the ed side of things within engineering, and it's been like a sweet journey for me. My PhD was like almost a stroll in the park, to God's glory, because when you do what you love to do, do you call that work? Maybe not.
Cool.
So I think that's just a summary of what is.
Beautiful. And of course, the highlights there is the pivot from engineering to education. And like you said, we will delve into that. So let's talk about more of the things that have been up for you in the last 1 2 years thereabout, and we will go after that. We will go right back into the past, but just getting a feel of what you've been up to. So yes, you went to the US to do your PhD and you're graduated. How does it feel to have now concluded your PhD in that field?
I think it feels good. It feels good, and so interestingly, the things I'd wanted to do before PhD, um, rather the things I intend to use the PhD for were things I was doing before the PhD. I mean, I was very much involved within the ed space before PhD. I'd worked with teachers. I'd done teacher training program for STEM folks. I'd done tons of training back in Lagos, Nigeria. And so it's not for want of capacity, right, that I came for the PhD. But of course, back then I remember we were trying to knock some doors in Nigeria. We wanted some strategic partnership. But maybe because they felt, okay, these guys are just university graduates, they just started the company and all of that. So some of the doors were not opening back then. But of course, when you attach append a doctor, right, or a PhD to your name and all of that, welcome, what do you guys want again? And then light note now, I remember we're trying to get some people's attention back in Nigeria, but we were not getting the attention. But when you just switch the border, come to this other side, like, oh, I'm not in the United. Oh, what do you want actually? What do you want? And everybody begins to.
Right, right.
So I think the most important thing for me, why I came into this was the stories are told, the things are done on a professional level. I wanted to do that on the scholarly level also because I believe one thing I tell people is, interventions we have in Nigeria, they seem to be success seems to be few and far in between. You see a governor comes to the aims of Afia and he tells, okay, this is what we want to do in this part of the nation. We saw governors back then who had what they call Okoimo, like the
In
what's it
Ocean
called
State, the tablet.
the the tab, for this. But I mean, eventually the students abused the use of that tab, right? Because interventions in Nigeria is not driven by data, by research. We just, okay, this is what they're doing somewhere. So can we just copy and paste the whole thing? So those were the things that I really like. I think I really need to um, address this issue of STEM ed in Nigeria from a research, standpoint. Like I'm not just doing something because this is what feels good to do, but hey, what's informing what I'm doing at this time? And I know I needed that research, research skill, the research orientation to really get to do this. All right, so that was one of the major reasons that informed my coming for the PhD program in the United States. So it wasn't as if some of the things I intend to do now were things I wasn't doing. I was doing some of those things from way back. So in the last 1 2 years, to come back to your question, I hope I'm not veering off course now.
No, it's
All right,
okay.
so of course I've been in the US for 5 years now, but because of my love for the Nigerian STEM ed space, I had to come back to Nigeria sometime last year to come study STEM teachers in Lagos. I believe the Western world has a lot to learn from Nigerian teachers, African teachers now. So I came back home just to study them. Like I had 7 of them back in Lagos Education District 4. I call them exemplary teachers. I all I did was just to go into their classes for like 2 months, observe them. How are they teaching? What are they leveraging to teach this? How are they making the concept of STEM simple for the students to interact with, for them to engage with? And I saw awesome things. So the last 1 2 years has been very pivotal in this career journey for me because aftermath of the dissertation I did, I got a gig with UNESCO. Based off the same date I came to Lagos to collect. I That was in June this year, like 4 5 6 months ago now. They wanted to develop the teacher policy development guide for global for teachers in within the global space, rural teachers now. So I pitched and all of that, and they picked myself and a couple of other folks across the world just to develop case studies. So my case study was focused on Nigerian teachers. And what's the story I'm telling? How Nigerian teachers are addressing the school is a scam narrative. Like I told the story of students back in Nigeria. Because they can't even correlate what they're learning in class with what they see, and because of um, the the way we perceive education to be like, why am I studying in school when I can see, being brought down the road. She hasn't even gone to school, but look at what she's controlling, like we use in Nigeria. Like, the girl is controlling money, but I mean, my school is not even paying up. The school is a scam after all. So I in that case study for UNESCO, I was trying to tell the story of what teachers are doing just to address that issue. Like, hey, there's a lot to learn from rural teachers back in Nigeria. So it's been very sweet, and I'm only looking forward to very sweet things, to do vis-a-vis research in the next couple of months and years.
Great discovery we're getting there. Just so much we're going to be digging into. Just so much I would like us to even find out about what the focus of your PhD dissertation was about. But let's see if we can go right all the way back to how this journey started. Before you went in to study engineering, what were you thinking? There are not many people who study systems engineering, at least that I have come across. The only reason I am I began to be aware of systems engineering if just a few years ago, maybe a year two ago, um, understanding how systems work. I wonder what that is in the engineering context and why you went in to study that. And let's start from there before we get into how you then moved into education.
So there's what I call childhood fantasy, like, oh, my big brother is studying this particular course back in maybe primary school or junior secondary school. Like, my big brother is studying electrical. That's because I want to go and study. We don't even know. We didn't know what those courses were back then, but like, because it's like, this sounds so sweet. Like, I think I love mechanical engineering. No, no, no. I think I love, this and that. We didn't know much about these courses. So for me, because I knew, I think I was a little bit good back then. So I knew I wanted to just be in the science class, right? And because I knew I wasn't very much of a biology person, I didn't really like biology. I wasn't feeling it, but I preferred my chemistry, physics, maths, and further math. So because of that, I knew okay, and I know that's going to lead me towards the engineering track. So I knew I was going to be in engineering because of my love for the four subject I mentioned now. So while I was trying to search for courses, okay, I look at okay, but I just realized that the word system sounded so sweet and sweet, like system engineer. I think I would love to be called a system engineer one day. So when I tell you that, I mean the decisions we make back at home, some most times it's not even informed by anything, concrete. I mean, imagine how is there substance to my decision? That was what led me into system engineering. All this, I didn't even know what it was back then, but because the name sounded like oh sweet, I knew I wanted to be an engineer, right? But what field basically I don't even know, right? But because the name, I think, and also because of the fact that I love the University of Lagos. That was my dream school from primary school, right? So, okay, University of Lagos offers systems. Oh, I love that. Let me just go for systems. What is it all about? I just need to. I knew it's engineering, right? So that was really what led me to it. So I call it childhood fantasy. Not really know what you are getting into, but because you just love the way the thing sounds. Okay, let me and yeah, my today after several years of living in university and so don't try this at two place.
The first thing that comes to mind when anyone, at least from our upbringing, hears engineering is machines, something mechanical, something. Well, as things evolved, we began to know of the automated components, but
Mhm.
typically to be machines. Does system engineering particularly have anything to do with machines? Please clear us.
Not at all. So they call us the corporate engineers back then at University of Lagos. So back then in a lab, we always dress in corporate, with that. You have to go to class with your tie, you know, if you can do a suit also that works. I mean, I remember back then if you don't come with a tie to class, you may be sent back. Okay, go back to wherever you're coming from. So because system engineering is all about a marriage of engineering and management, like a hybrid. So back then, approaching engineering from the management, standpoint to get. So we didn't really interface with machines like electrical and mechanical guys, but we took courses back then in mechanical, in civil engineering, in civil, in electrical rather. And because of that, we went to workshops with them. But for system engineering courses, there was nothing like machine. We're not interfacing with machines. We only took courses around operations research, um, programming, like the soft side of engineering. I mean, yeah, nothing hard actually.
Right. I mean, if someone says software engineering now, a lot of people will be able to relate. But back when it began to become popular,
Yeah.
it doesn't make sense because which one is software engineering? If it is engineering, it has to be physical, it has to be hardware.
Physical, something,
Yeah, but yeah, systems engineering all around that design
yeah.
approach towards creating systems
Mm-hmm.
that are complex that work together, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Great
Mm-hmm.
stuff. And then you moved on from that and you did your master's in the same field, you
Field,
know,
yeah, just engineering. Mhm.
then education. Tell us how the education happened.
So I think it was in 2014. So I've always had a passion for young people, right? From way back. While I was in school back then, after high school, I was able to teach a couple of folks. So when I realized that when I was in high school, I didn't struggle with STEM concepts. I mean, John, I can tell you this for free. My chemistry, physics, maths, and further maths, I loved those subjects back then. I mean, and
I
I had a
wish we
couple
were
of
friends
friends.
back then.
I would have learned from you, of course.
Come on, come on,
I wanted to
come
learn,
on,
like I wanted to
come
learn concepts back
on.
then. I remember, do you know that I had a friend back then, he was in GS3, but he was even carrying engineering, the engineering maths, the K strap,
Matt.
in GS3. I mean, those were the kind of friends I was working with back then in school. We just wanted to like, explore beyond what we're being taught in life. Wanted to like, okay, so beyond what we're being taught, we wanted to know, okay, why is it that, during the cold season, the cars find it very hard to start up. Like we wanted to understand the science of things. I mean, we loved physics back
Just that
then,
curiosity.
chemistry, maths, and we were very curious. That's the word. So because STEM was kind of very fun for us in school, and when I finished high school, I got to the university, I realized that kids that were coming behind us, they were struggling. Like, how come you are struggling with STEM concept? We didn't even struggle with all of these things back then. We wanted to even know more. Like, I mean, we wanted more, 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 more. So that was what informed our desire. My friends, two friends, and my Peter and Moses, we all came from the University of Lagos. We wanted to bridge that gap. Like, can we make learning fun for students? And like the way we had fun with learning STEM back then, these kids they're just struggling. They're just memorizing all these concepts. They call it like cram lapo, right? I'm like, no, it shouldn't be this way. When you understand the principles, like you can go all out, attacking, addressing things, knowing why things work the way they are, all of that. So we now started STEM Ed Africa, the organization. And one of the first things we did back then was, what we call the science of the third mainland bridge. So we wanted to connect what students are seeing every day in Lagos, right? With what they are being taught in class. Okay, students from the mainland, they go to the island, they transverse the third mainland bridge, the longest bridge in Nigeria, right? So what if we told them that the things you're learning in class, the concept of gravity of trust were employed by engineers in building the bridge that you pass day and day, day and night. Will learning become so meaningful for them after all? So that was what led us like, hey, so we did that video back then because the sense of the terminal break. We did it in a fun way also because we wanted to make learning like you can also catch fun while learning, it's that simple. It's that simple. So we tried to demystify those concepts of gravity, upthrust, and all of that using it's on YouTube now. The video is on YouTube, the Science of the Terminal Bridge. We did it in 2015. That was 10 years ago. It was around this time, 10 years ago, November 2015. And aftermath of the video, we went to schools back then just to, sample student opinion on what they think about this concept. Having watched a YouTube video, we're like, oh my god! I mean, so these things can be so simple like this. I mean, students told us back then that this concept were things we are just crammed. We didn't even understand. We just wanted to cram to pass. But like, no, it can be fun. So that was what led me down the road. I'm like, okay, how can I give back to those coming behind me? Like the way I enjoyed STEM, learning. Can I draw on the expertise, the understanding I had, and try to facilitate that same learning for the young ones? So that was what led me to pivot from engineering, to education side of things.
And this was in the U.
So this was during my master's at University of Lagos. I was finishing masters about that time, when we decided to start STEM at Africa. Yeah, I was done with
Okay,
my first degree, my second degree. Yeah.
great. Great. And how did this project then evolve? What were the things you were able to do? Because, of course, you ran that for a while before then going on for your PhD.
I love to tell this story time and again. I love to tell this story. So, thankfully, we had a powerful mentor back then. Pastor Tayo. He works with the government in Abuja now. So he was the one that did the hand holding for us. So he had a lot of contacts in government, in industry, and all of that. So when he saw that these guys have a lot of passion, like, okay, how do I maximize, this guy's passion for them? So back then when we told him about this whole thing, we began to meet with him time and again, and he began to connect us with people that matter. So I remember back then he gave us a connect to Microsoft. Hey, we have these guys, who are ready to do, this particular training for teachers, for core members now. So we were planning on training and core members who were posted to teach in schools. So we realized that it was not enough for you to have had a first class in chemistry. We don't understand the teaching methods, the pedagogy, the science behind teaching. You may struggle to teach chemistry, even though you are very good with it. So we wanted to bridge that gap. So we met with our mentor back then, who connected us to Microsoft. There was this guy Shola, yeah, Olushola Amuson, yeah, that's the guy's name. Pastor Tari did the connection back then. So we had our first training in Microsoft Tower. That's VI. That was in 2016 November, 9 years ago now. So we partnered with Lagos State government, through Pastor Tires Connect. He also brought Microsoft allowed us to use our office back then, 2016, and also NYC, because we trained core members, right? So that was what led us, that was our first big breakthrough. We were there back then. I did a session. My friends also did a session. We also invited, folks. So I also spoke at that session back then. We still have the pictures, from 2016. So when we began to do things like that, the following year we also did the same training. We went beyond Nigeria. We also got someone, a professor in Purdue University in Indiana in the United States, to train our core members back then. So we began to mentor these core members. 2016 and 17, we trained them, we mentored them, and all that. And also, we wanted to also tell stories, of what we can achieve, from the research standpoint. So in 2019, myself, two core members back then, and my friend in the United States, who came to the United States before me, one of the co-founders of STEM Africa. We also did a research paper with these core members, two of them now. Wanted to study state of STEM education in Nigeria, and I was the one that presented the paper back then in 2019 at the at a conference at the University of Lagos. So these were things we did back then. Professional level, scholarly level, and all that, just to begin to move things to be in the right direction regarding STEM learning for high school students. So we focused more on teachers training, all right, because we knew, I mean, one of the best, the most important factor to quality education, that's STG for now, is actually having like a competent teacher. I mean, that's about the most important factor over and above any other thing. When the teacher is someone says, when the student arrives, the teacher leaves. In the sense that, when the student, I mean, when you feed the student with what they need to know, I mean, you can just go to the back because you've laid that good foundation, rest assured these guys can build on it. So that was the foundation we had in high school. Like we had sweet, foundation, and we built on that, and God is helping us till today. So we focused more on teacher training because of that. We had common mass training. I had lots and lots of training back in Nigeria. I was involved with Olympiad, Nigerian Olympiad now. I trained teachers back then, around 21st century soft skills, a lot of things. We also partner with, at the time, I think Lagos Business School. We also partner with Lonadec in Saboyaba in Lagos. A couple of summer camp for high school students. I was going there to facilitate and all of that. IHS Store at the time, we're trying to do something with them in Lagos. So we really got some traction within the STEM ed space in Nigeria based off the things we're doing with NYC, with the government, and with core members. That really was what brought us to the limelight. And we've been reckoned as one of the um, pioneers, within the space back in Nigeria, because at that time when we began STEM, that was in 2014, we didn't have many organizations, that began to look into STEM education. I mean, we had people who came before, but there were not so many back then, and so we could call ourselves one of the, guys back then who pioneered some of these things.
Great. And of course, that time you're talking about, 2014, 2015, was also the cradle years of technology as we know it today in Nigeria. So between 2012 and 2016, 2016, a lot of the companies that are moving things now. So, like Co-Creation Hub was founded, I believe, around 2010,
CCL.
thereabout. Uh,
Andela came around after.
Andela
Like
came
oh yeah.
around. Microsoft got an office in Nigeria. The likes
Mm-hmm.
of Paystack got YC funding in 2016 or so, Flutterwave as well. So quite a lot was happening within that 5 year period. And I can see how important it was that you showed up in that era of things. And that journey has been 10 years ago now. So there's definitely a lot packed in that
Yes.
history. Quite
Yeah.
a lot.
So
Uh, I like for us to dig in a bit. There's no doubt about how much work went into it and how much work is still going in that direction. You've still not taken off from the education space. So let's look into it for a bit. Regarding your objective at the time for what you were doing, STEM education, primarily one thing that started things for you was that you realized how relatively easy it was for you to understand STEM concept while you were in high school. First question would be, would you credit that ability to assimilate STEM concepts to the uh, strength and quality of teachers you are primarily, or to personal curiosity and research, yours and that of your friends? Which would you say it was that was responsible for your ability with regards to STEM concepts?
I think I would say my teachers played a part. No one is self-made, of course. Teachers played a part. Friends in high school also played a part, and also the whole thing start and stop at your desk, right? So, I mean, I was equally curious back then, and over and above all, I had a big brother back then who was my teacher and mentor, like immediate big brother. I learned a lot from him, you know. So I think I see him as about the most important factor here, in addition to my friends. Yeah,
Great.
those were the two. Yeah, because I was in a public school, so teacher, public school teachers, they were times they didn't even show up and all of that, they had other things we were doing. So they were not that committed actually. So I would think it's my big brother and the fact that I had friends who we co-created knowledge back then. We learned together, we asked questions. I mean, we became curious, we just wanted to explore learning back then. So those were the factors that really led me to seeing STEM as like, oh, this is very good a field and I would love to make some my mark in this field.
And what did the teachers you began to train think of the things you began to train them on with regards to assimilating, helping learners assimilate STEM concepts? Did the contents of your training come across as relatively new, or did it seem like the things they were used to going through their teachers' training and education? I want to know, like, what level of newness or novelty were they interacting with when they came to your trainings?
So I think the perspective I address this whole thing is the last thing the fish is aware of is water. You know why? Because the fish, that's the natural ecosystem, right? It's always in water. So it's not even aware it's in water. So most of these teachers, what I realize is some of the things we're training them on were things they were even doing. But because so they needed someone like me, right? I mean to come, okay, like when I was about observing my teachers back then, I go to the class. So because of my scholarly orientation, right, there were things I was noting down. Oh, okay, I think I love this. And when I shared those things with the teachers, they were like, I didn't even know I was doing this. So because one of the ways you can be a very teacher is for you to be reflexive. Like think through reflection. Okay, why am I even doing this? What is the assumption leading me to doing this? So that's the things. Those were the things we did that I do, right? Because like this is it. This is what I'm seeing in your classroom. This is what you are doing. And from research, doing this and that can lead us down this road. All right. So trying to make them see what they are doing, what they are not even aware of. Like I said, the fish is not even aware it's in water, but hey, you're in water actually. And look at how you've been navigating. You don't even know this, right? This is what you're doing. And what you're doing, can lead us down this road. So ability to unpack those things, those practices, So when I talk to my teachers, I don't come as the expert at all. I did a training on Sunday workshop. I mean, I'm here to learn from you. So can we just begin to talk? That's what we do basically. Like I'm not coming to. I mean, you guys know all of these things. You know the content way more than I do. You know the pedagogy way more than I do. But I'm just coming as a person that can help them to unpack. Maybe okay. So imagine asking questions. The way you're doing now. Ask me a question that's like, oh, I didn't even think about the reason why I did this back then. Why I choose systems. Can you now say now? You've made me think like, why did I even choose systems engineering? And that's a very good one. So you brought out that knowledge from me. So imagine doing the same thing for teacher. Like, why even doing this to your students? And helping them connect that. Oh, I mean, this thing you are doing, it can lead you down the road. When you don't honor student culture, it can begin to make them say, okay, we don't even need you. Like all of those, bringing them to see the big picture of the things they are doing. Of course, that's not to say, we don't come with our own theories and all of those things, but majorly, I think the best way to do this is just to facilitate that learning from them. We call it like constructivist, mindset in education, right? In the sense that, I believe the knowledge is in you already. You know it already, but I'm just bringing it out through my questions, through interaction, through like you're doing now through engagement with you. So we call it social construction of knowledge. Like it's through interaction we begin to uncover, unpack knowledge, and that's the best way, to engage with this for because you don't want to come across like you guys don't know anything. I'm the expert. I mean, they won't even listen to you at all. And who is even the expert? I believe they even know more than I do, but that ability to uncover, to help them uncover the gems they are doing that they don't even know about. Because when you're like, oh, so I'm even this, I didn't even know they can own in. All right, like can I begin to how do I begin to refine this practice? How do I begin to be intentional at ensuring this and that? And so that's the standpoint from whence we'll address all these things, helping them to uncover what's in them already. Like yeah, you know all of these things already. Nothing new actually under the sun, like we say, nothing new. But can I bring these things out of it? Because the last thing the fish is aware of is water. Fish is like, that's my natural system. And I don't even, oh, am I in water? Yes, you're in water, actually. You are. So the ability to help the fish to see that you're in water is what makes, I believe, a good facilitator for STEM teachers.
You're saying something very powerful there, which is helping the teachers to identify the methodology and approaches that they are already applying and the potential of those approaches. And when they appreciate the potential of the approaches, then they are able to systemize it. So more than it being an accidental application or something that is one off, right? Now that they realize, oh, this thing is something I'm doing, or maybe this is something I can be doing, they can then create a system around it, replicate it, and always get a kind of result because they always do it that way. And of course, that process can improve. So I think that's what I hear from what you're sharing on that side.
Thank you very much, John, for sharing that. I mean, I love the way you capture this whole thing. And just to give an example to buttress, all right. So last year I was in a school in Aguda Surulere in Lagos, and the teacher teaches basic science. And guess what happened in the class? I was just at the back, trying to observe, like because I love doing that. I love education generally. So when I see teachers teaching, I want to just observe how is he teaching and all that. And there was a time in the classroom, so as if the teacher couldn't manage the class. You know what happened? This class became rowdy. Like ordinarily, if you're the principal, I've said, Mrs. A, what's the issue with you? You can't even manage this class of 100 students. But actually, on the contrary, the things I began to uncover too after that, I'm like, oh my. Because I realized that students had this apathy towards learning, right? So for you to even get them, because what they were doing at that time was they were debating what domestic animal, what it is and what it is not. So it was very like, no, this is no, Like so when you get students to be what's the word now? Enthusiastic about what they're learning, they're doing something great, teacher. Do you so forget about the fact that you want to make the class orderly. Forget about that now. These guys don't even care. I mean, that context is actually like low resource constraint and setting, right? So kids don't even care. They came to school tired. I mean, I just went out to sell something this morning. So when you can get them to be excited, man, you've done something powerful. So I'm like, hey, Mrs. A, never mind, never mind. This is something powerful. And I centered that particular training in my research that I love this. I love this. Like, So I call it intellectual discourse, like, but the class was very, no, no, no. So guess what? She only intercepted them when she saw that we probably seen something wrong, okay, but she just looked, observed them. Like, I love this. This is even how to even know your students. Because we tell people that today's teacher should know more than just content. You have to know who your students are. It's as important as knowing the content. So when you allow them to like, express themselves freely that way, you are knowing who they. Oh, this is how much he even thinks about this concept. Oh, okay, I know how to tweak my lesson to address this issue. You are knowing them, and that's a very good. So when students can be caught in that web of getting to engage intellectual discourse now. Oh my, that teacher is doing something very good at them. So imagine such a thing that speaks to lack of order in the classroom. You can't even manage the class, but it's not like that actually. These kids are not even interested in learning. So a teacher to get them to this point speaks to something which she's doing. So can she see what she's doing? And like you mentioned, systematic, make the whole thing systematic. All right, create a system around this whole thing. Like, okay, how do I own in on this practice? What do I do, to tweak it? How do I get, like, so things like that is what we do just to help teachers. It's able to support them that you guys are doing these things already actually, but it's just for you to be aware that this is what you are doing. Just be aware.
Just to be aware and create a viable system out of it. Let me take you off on a detail very quickly. We've talked about how technology began to take off on a great spiral around the time that you started STEM Ed, and a number of companies have been built around that time and beyond. Can you speak to some of the education companies in the Nigerian space that you have seen coming from that era and beyond? And has anyone stood out to you? Has there been anyone that struck the chord in terms of trying to do something you thought was worth paying attention to within education?
I think I can remember Andela now. Um, Andela. Okay, so because in 2017 we partnered with Andela for this particular training for core members. Um, they came around to help us empower that core member back in 2017. So, and the one thing I love about their model, I don't know if they run the model, but I think they've changed the model ever since. About the fact that talent is commonplace, right? Everyone is talented, right? But opportunity is not. So you can't speak same about. So that's the model around which Andela is, was created. So, like, how can we facilitate opportunity for talented kids? Everyone has talent in one way or the other, but it's just opportunity to harness those talent that is lacking. So I think that's an organization I love the model, and like I said, we partnered with them in 2017, and I think aside Andela, of course, we had other organizations in Nigeria. So IHS Tour, I remember this. IHS Tour was in 2018. So they wanted us to implement a very powerful project for them in Nigeria. They wanted to train STEM teachers in southern and northern Nigeria. So it was a very massive project. So we pitched our idea, but then, we can do this for you guys. Like, we can do this for you guys. We are skilled and we have the whatsoever to doing this for them. So I remember I was in VI back then to meet to them, more like to defend the proposal we submitted to them. And I was like, oh guys, I mean, we love what you guys are doing and all of that. But we didn't eventually implement it for them because of we couldn't reach a compromise regarding the budget for the whole project back then. So, and eventually I remember that same year they called me back then to just, even though we couldn't implement for them the project, but they wanted me to come see what they were doing with their students. So back then we went to is it the Shell Hall in Onikon area in Lagos? That's Marina area. Shell Hall, they had students from different schools back then, in Lagos. They were trying to do project-based learning with the students. So, and this is what Vineyard loves a lot now. Like, that's my bread and butter. Like, oh my god, I'll be there now. I was on that day. I saw students and I even took video. Like, oh my goodness, I went. So the students that like project they had done, STEM project now, trying to just pitch it to people like, like, this is what I did. This is the concept behind this. So I was just there on that day, just enjoying myself. I went from one student to the other, from one student group rather to the other student. So I think IHS Tower, they really own they wanted to do so much. It was part of their CSR back then, right? Can we give a lot back to the STEM ed space? Because there are telecoms, what's it called, infrastructural company, right? So, and STEM is largely, responsible for that, all right, for the type of work they do. So they wanted to give back, right, to the system. So they did project back then, and so I think I will speak to Andela and IHS Towers. I just hope I didn't be, of course, with your question.
No, not
Did I?
at all. I mean, just I just wanted us to get a sense of what you think of the education
Yeah.
and education technology space in particular. Now, let's talk a bit more to teachers. And you spoke about how teachers training is so important to you. It's, of course, the place that you have operated the most within education. And that's something that is similarly of importance to me because in my little research, I also think that that's something worth paying attention to. So let's talk about the resource constrained Nigeria, as is largely the case around the global south, and how education has been treated in the space with particular focus on teachers. I mean, there are different ways we can tell the story and different perspective with which we can look at things. But what do you think is the thing to pay attention to the most, especially within K 12 and Nigeria, that will transform that landscape? I'll take that question again. Within K 12 in Nigeria, if there was one area, one niche that you focus on, I would not be surprised if you talk about teachers training. My hope is that we can dig into it, right? But what niche would you say would be most impactful if it gets the prioritization right now towards being able to fix the entire K-12 landscape?
Okay, let me speak for STEM, right? So I believe STEM ed, the way I conceive STEM ed is like students are learning a new language, right? So think about STEM ed because the curriculum we have at best at this time is mostly westernized, right? So think of it's like a new language to us, right? You know, concept like solubility in chemistry that seems so foreign. So what is even solubility? Right? We can't even imagine what that is, right? So, having said that, I believe the most modern thing that can transform the space is how do we empower teachers to teach this new language? I'm speaking to the STEM space now specifically, and I think the same thing applies to other areas. The commercial subject and even the teachers generally within K-12, empowering them, to teach concept in a way that is meaningful. That's the most important word here. How do I teach this particular concept that is meaningful for the students? You know, I think that has been the challenge over the years, and that's the reason a student will just cram and pour in the exam because they can't even see what you're teaching them. They can't even see. So your ability to make them see that thing is what is most lacking in teachers today. So because of that, I mean, I advocate for pre-service training. That's before they become teachers. We need to train them right, and also in-service training. That's continuous. So even while they are teachers, while they are within the service now, we need to continually support them, right? Train them, time and again. Knowledge is proliferating at a rate never imagined in history. So with these guys also have to be, they have to catch up with the trend, right? So that requires training time and again because, like I said before, the most important factor in our quest for quality education is teachers, and teacher training comes, in that regard. Yeah, becomes very important in that regard.
I'd like to get your theses for why teachers should be regarded as most important within education to transform the space. I also have that bias. I have my thesis, but I want to listen to your thesis for why teaching
Okay, so
should be considered very importantly.
good to know we have scholars, all right. So so there's something we call show and tell in our field. You can't just tell me this is it. Like you've told me, right? So now show me, all right. It's about giving evidence. Evidence-based argument. So of course, research is replete with the fact that teachers, we've done research over the years and we've seen like, hey, when teachers, for something to move within the ed space, move that thing from the teachers, standpoint, another thing to fall in line. We've seen that, from the kind of work I've done also with teachers, So I'm speaking from two standpoint now, that's evidence-based standpoint, which is, what is in research, research that has been done over the years. That is one. And also from what I've seen also, evidence that, okay, let me give an instance now, an example now. So one thing I used to talk to just back then is I realized that you tell us students are dull in your class, but hey, are they actually dull? This same guy leaves the classroom and is on the field playing this pen and he's showing enormous knowledge regarding soccer in the area of soccer, music, like he knows modern boys music, Davido, like like what is up? So it's not for want of capacity to learn. That's the evidence I'm giving you now. It's not for want of I mean, the guy, he has learned something, whatever you call it, useful or not, I don't care. But he knows how to learn. He has learned something. He knows Cristiano Ronaldo, Messi. He knows everything about the history. That's ability to learn something. So that he hasn't learned STEM is not even the issue. It's about how he has learned what he has learned, and the teacher to know how he has learned that thing and use that same concept, that same, leverage what's the abilities for that student. So I've seen that played out time and again. So because of that, from that's my empirical lens, which I'm saying that hey, I believe it's teachers, they are the most important factor within this equation. When teachers move, forget it, students will also move. A teacher can determine if student is going to like. Back then in school, remember, I mean, people can tell you, I don't like maths. Why? Because the teacher is this and that. I mean, that was like a song people were singing back then. So can you see the importance of teacher? So from my growing up days, I saw that teachers were the most important. And even now, as a researcher, it's still the same story. So it's a longitudinal thing from Kekere till this time, from when I was growing up till this time, I think teachers have been and they remain the most important thing. Maybe tomorrow something can change, I know we're going to get to the future of education later. Something can change. But for now, the way it is, teachers remain the most important because they determine if students will even love that subject. They determine that. And I would love to share what the teacher in one of my research is doing in regards to the fact that she knows that students can determine to love math because of me. I mean, I can share that later with you.
No, please, why don't you go on with that? That's
Okay, so good. I mean, this teacher, she's in Sabuyaba. I love my teacher so much. I honor them. I love them. I'm ready to tell their story wherever I am in the world. So, because she realized that students had an aversion for maths, so she wanted them. She believed that okay, if the students love me, they can love maths, right? Because it's like no, just do a social experiment and ask students, oh, what do you think about maths teacher? They'll tell you, oh, it's the man that has that big trouser now, who doesn't dress well, who just carries the cane, like they have this awkward feeling about like so they don't even like math because in a way they may not even be able to know that the reason they don't like math is because they don't even like that teacher.
yeah.
So she wanted to make herself amiable to these kids. So she gets to the class, she would be loving to them, care for them and all of that. I can't remember the things she was doing back then now. But she wanted them to like her first of all as a person because you realize that loving as a person eventually opens because you want to listen to the person you love. Am I correct?
Totally.
You have your wife, of course, and won't you want to just listen? Let me just hear my sweetheart talk. Can I hear you talk? Just to hear you talk, and I'm just so the same thing applies. So these things are because we are social beings, right? So the student tend to open up their mind. Oh, this is Mrs. This and that in the classroom. Once I mean, so she told me that she used to dress well, more like just to counter that narrative that master don't dress well. She would dress well, and be able to then. She even allowed them to play a game in the class. I mean, that game is meant to foster some math concept, of course, right? But these were things that were not done back then when we were studying. So just to make the kids know that, hey, you can, you can have a very fun, loving, math teacher actually. So she made herself loving towards them. And do you know that as a result of that, the students are falling in love with mathematics. I was in a class like 2, 3 times last year to see the excitement. You were like, is this a math class? You'll be amazed to see, John. You'll be amazed. So I think all of those things have made me realize that no, I think teachers for now they remain the most important factor within this equation.
Within this equation, what you're sharing there is just striking and interesting because it was bringing to mind the mirror concept. It's definitely true that when people admire a thing, well, all humans, whatever we admire, we desire to be like, right? And that's one thing. The other is that because this person is someone I like, I would also seek to impress them.
I love
It's
that.
natural instinct, right?
I love
So
that.
because I want to impress this person, then I will do well in that subject. That's even
Mm-hmm.
secondary, but it works as well. And it's
Mm-hmm. It
beautiful
does.
how all of these things are important. And I wonder just how many teachers are aware of this. See, this question about who should we pay attention to is coming up because one of the things I've observed in the years, and thankfully people like you and others have done a lot of work in upskilling teachers, and it seems like so much is being done in different ways, but it appears as if within the education technology space, a lot more has been done so far in supporting the learners. And all that is good as well. For example, solutions like ULesson, founded by Shimsha Gaya, the former founder, the founder of Konga, uh, and we had the likes of Edukoya that was founded as well about 3 years back, had significant funding to take off. These two solutions, there is greatly, all of these companies are great in the things that they've done, but in my own estimation of what has been done within education technology, except for more recently when MasterCard began to really fund some education startups through Co-Creation Hub to support K-12 education as well as other education startups. A lot more direction of funding and support and noise or publicity, as you may call it, has been toward the learners. And while that's valid, I feel like not so much had been done for enabling teachers. Now, I don't necessarily need for us to go in that direction. I just wanted to highlight that and to say that was one thing that prompted that question. But I'm looking at teachers now and I'm thinking, yes, you've talked about how important teachers are and how their position and operation is transformative to the outcome of learners. But I'm wondering, the truth is still that not a lot of teachers are excited about the space. Now, there are many people who feel called to the space, just like yourself. Studied systems engineering, but just falling so much in love with education. I've done so much in that so far and invested so much to the extent of doing your PhD in that space. But it's not to say that it is exciting. It turns out a lot of people are doing it, one, because they feel a calling to the field, two, because, well, it's one thing you can do legitimately to keep surviving. What's happening with enthusiasm for teachers? What's missing in enabling a lot more people to be enthusiastic about being a teacher, a professional that's passing on knowledge?
This is a powerful question. We can sit here all day discussing this question. I think one of the issues we have in education space at this time is because we don't have teachers that are passionate. They didn't want to even do. Um, they didn't want to be teachers, right? But they are victims of circumstance. For lack of a better one. Okay, that's the only thing we can do. And that's like the low hanging fruit. And they just got into building and they're not even excited, no passion for the student and
Do
all
you
that.
think we designed our education system to be like that? Do you think that we created that kind of environment where that
I
becomes the
think it is.
norm?
Yeah, I think it's because think about it back then. This narrative that sold back then. It was even from way back. When you see, okay, we tell ourselves, okay, we want to get to university of whatsoever in Nigeria. The best scores are for engineering, for medicine, for science. But the ones that are probably like at the bottom of the class, they are the ones who push to education, right? Those, I mean, you and I know what these kind of things can do, right? And our country hasn't recovered from that because back then, like we tell you see us, we are in engineering, this education guys, they are close to the gates. We folks look down on them back then. Actually, folks look down on them like education bow. We are talking. What do you know? So and they were also feeling back then this sense of inferiority complex. They had it back then also. It was obvious. We knew this thing because they were coming to Nigeria back then to take courses with us, but they were not. very, bold and all of that because of the stereotype. And so this thing, it's like a common trait from that particular stage, right? And now this is the people they want to teach, right? I mean, they're not even happy because we all think, they are the downtrodden in society. They are not up there. Their mates who are there with them is in Shell, is earning so much and all of that. So we don't have guys who are very excited about the job and like, oh, let's just do this, because that's what we can do. And it's even with the idea of training teachers, when you have people that are not even passionate about the space, you can only do as much in all honesty with such hands, because they are not ready hand. So the way we conceived STEM back then was STEM. We see the need first of all, it task the mind, engage the hands, and make a way. So when you don't have hands that are ready, forget it. You can't do so much more with the training. You can just be pumping money from Mastercard to Microsoft. You won't do so much. But okay, come to this. But we all have been speaking about the fact that we want a country that is this and that. We want to change our country. But do we even know that teachers have the power? Oh my God! Do we need to begin to tell these guys how much power they have? How much power we have? Because I must say, teacher, how much power we have as teachers? You have 50 students in your classroom. Do you know what you have at all? Do you even know what you have at all? So, John, this is what I do. It's about reimagine the future for these ones. So, let me give a story to you now. Okay, a man was very good, a civil engineer. He had built so many buildings, so many bridges, and all of that. And the guy was to retire after so many years, illustrious years in service. And the boss told him, okay, do you know what? Can you just build me a final house? Because he had lived an illustrious career, he had done so much. I'm about retiring. Okay, let me just do this, and just retire and live happily ever after, like they say. He was not really putting his mind. This was a man that was very excellent in his career. He wasn't really putting his mind right. He was just let me just do this shabbily and get that of the way and just retire. I'm tired. But guess what happened? When the man finished the house, do you want to get what happened to the man? The boss told him that what? Thank you
Don't
so
do
much.
it.
This is our gift from us to you. Oh my God. He said, oh my, what did I do? If I had known I was building my own house, I would have put in my best strength ever into this. And he didn't even know. So they said, can we begin to tell teachers the same that, do you know you're even building a house you're going to stay in? Because these students are taking to they want to determine your policy to govern you in the future. So imagine you're building that house haphazardly today, like that man. Let me just do and whatever. Imagine you're doing anyhow today with these kids, and they will determine your future, the policies, the governance. They will be the ones to because when you are old, we have this ones ruling and all that, right? In a very okay society, right? This should be the ones to rule, all right. But so that like that man who didn't know, but he couldn't even help it after all. He has built the house, and that's a gift from the company to him. So can we begin to reimagine this with teacher that hey, you have a lot in your hands. You have like 10 students in this class. Let's have world changers there and there, please. So I think teachers need also motivational speaking. It's not about referring to acquire like we joke, with in Nigeria, but about seeing possibilities with this kid that this is gold with you. Do you even have that idea at all? You have 10 students in the class, you don't even know what you're doing. Because me, I'm pro young people, right? I mean, in church, you will see me, I'm the guy you see in church. After church service, I'll call Bimboya, come here. The mom is there also. So tell me, what did you learn in school today? Okay, good. What is one divided by zero? I mean, I engage my young people like that. So you will see me, they will come around, Uncle Ben, all of that. I mean, after you see them come to me on Tuesday, not service, but they just want to come and learn maths from me. So I've been that kind of person. So I see a lot in this young one. So if we all can see the gold we have in our hands that needs to be mined, maybe we can begin to take teaching serious. But even at that, I know some people will still not be passionate, but maybe you can just help a couple of others. Like we have a lot. You're talking about restructuring Nigeria, but you need to start from the classroom. Imagine you mentoring 50 students. You're like a mentor to these ones actually. Do you even know what that means? Do you know what this means? Because John, I've seen the power of mentorship, right? Like you said, when people love you, they want to do things to like, oh, I love mentor Vian so much. I mean, that's what my mentors, my kids call me MV, mentor Vian. Like, so they want to like do just to make sure I don't veer off, I don't be in his bad books and all. So imagine doing that for students, right? That's a lot. That's a lot. That's gold on our hands. But we don't have that mindset. We just go to the class, not prepared, tired, worn out. And I understand. I mean, I won't blame this child because, I mean, these guys, these are parents, these are husbands, mothers and all that. They have a lot of things. It's as if the take home pay is not even taking them home again. So I really understand that dynamic, right? It's kind of complex and challenging, but maybe we can, if you can begin to reimagine these things with them, they can begin, those things can begin to strengthen out. Hey, despite the fact that teaching isn't that profitable, right? We know that, right? But your hands can be strengthened that, hey, your work will be rewarded, please, Let not your hand be slack, like we sing in church. Let not your hand be slack, please, You are training, you are mentoring world changers here. Can you just pour that 40 minutes in class? Give it your best shot, please. Go all out. Mentor these ones. Be involved with them. That's what I encourage teachers. Beyond the classroom, I mean, me, if I'm a teacher, you see my student, they come to me in the classroom now, in the staff room rather, because there's always something to share with these ones. When I was teaching back then, I was a core member in Imo State, where I served, in a village school. You will see me, John. I was that teacher that would go to the classes when there was no period for me. You know why? I served in an Igbo state, right? Imo State, right? But I wanted these kids just to pour out everything in me, I'll be the one to teach them on the assembly ground about moral instruction. I'll go to them also. I taught them Yoruba songs. I mean, like, I was just very involved. But like, hey, Copa V, Copa. I mean, I was so much in because I know that these are the future. And whatever I can do today, I won't be with them forever, just 1 year. So I think even though I was just being paid 4K back then in 2012, 2013, right? But my understanding got my hands strengthened to do the work. John, I came back after every day, tired and worn out because I've spent myself in that school. Little wonder I was given the best comment in that school, of course, to God's glory, So I mean, I spent and I was spent. You see kids back then. One of them, imagine a girl. That's to show you the power of teachers now. A girl back then took me to her mom. That, sir, mommy, I want you to come and give Papa Vignon food. I'm sure she took me to her mom. Indeed, around 7 p.m. This is a village school. One of them also told the mom, Mommy, I want to give Papa Danso money. She gave me 200 naira back then in 2012. This was, I mean, imagine 200 naira back then. The mother in a village school, I'm serious. Because of the fact that they saw me as like the guy that wants to just support. This guy loves us. Of course, even when they aired, I mean, I discipline them, they know that, hey, I have the crowd and the stick here. So, but they just saw this guy that wanted to just pour. So, I think if teachers can be that passionate, but I know it's difficult because, like I said, hey, a lot of things are happening. People are not even happy that pay is not taking them on again. But whatever we can do just to make their hands strengthen, like, hey, the work is you're doing is going to be rewarded. These guys you are building at this time, it's like the house you're going to stay in eventually, right? So, can you put in a little more effort here and there? That 40 minutes period, make it count. Be interested in these guys. And so I think that's the way we can do some of these things. And even though I know it's not like it wants, I mean, like a holistic solution, but it can begin to help some of these guys to strengthen their hands, not to be weak and tired even after years of doing the same thing. And I've said a lot
Totally.
of things.
Yeah, quite important things, many important things, particularly the subject of passion. I don't think we can overemphasize that. Motivation and interest in what we do. It's applicable in every field, but like you said, it's also even something worth paying attention to for every teacher to think of the future game, the big picture of what it is that they're doing, with the opportunity to shape this mind. Well, the truth is, one teacher wouldn't be the only one to shape the mind of a child, but the other truth that also goes along with that is that everyone who becomes successful in life would maybe it'd be too general to say everyone, but most people who turn out to be successful in life have people they point to in their past who pointed them in the right direction. Recently I read again. I was reading Ben Hanson's Think Big, and there were teachers in that story. I've read the book by Steve Jobs. You'd find teachers relevant. So when you read about and find about people who turned out to be great, there was that teacher in their journey who gave them that glimmer of hope, who believed in them, who gave them an opportunity, who pushed them. And I think that teachers are that powerful in the story making of every human being. The other thing that you mentioned is how the realities are also pressing. The situation of the country, for the most part, the inflation, economic position of things, can also be a stretch. Now, there are people whom, regardless of how much they earn, they were not really interested, and we need to do some mind reformation. And I'd like to see what you're thinking in that direction. How can we cause a mind reformation at scale? But whatever mind reformation and transformation we do, we also need to pay attention to the fact that for the most part, the teaching profession isn't satisfactory in terms of the welfare that it provides. Now, I know that the story never ends with how much government can do, so I would not even generally go in that direction. My thinking would be, how can teachers take take the condition in their hands and say, we want to redefine the space? What can teachers do about elevating the quality of their service with a potential influence on the reward that that service then gets? I feel that the teachers should be able to do something. So, my next question is two pronged. One is, how can we cause a mind transformation and change the perception of teachers at scale? And the second is, how can teachers, take the whole in their hand in terms of creating an elevation of standard within the space so that it can potentially increase the welfare that that profession gets in society.
Um, Thank you so much, John. So I think one thing we can do to help teachers that mind shift is that we also need not to teachers training shouldn't just be about content and pedagogy. Actually, I mean things around social, emotional state of the teachers, right? I mean, caring. Imagine training is geared towards just helping them. It's just that they're in public school and they have a lot of things they grapple with in the house, and that's a lot that can stretch someone emotionally, right? So we need training. I mean, workshop around that area also. Therapy, whatever you can call it, around that area. And we also need teachers training to also capture realities like, hey, mind shift. All right, like I mentioned the other time, if we begin to understand students in this way, is it going to change the way we approach teaching? So teachers training should be kind of holistic, right? Beyond content, beyond pedagogy and all of that, What can we do to also strengthen, incentivize these teachers? Or like, oh, I mean, this is it for us, right? And also, we keep telling ourselves that we need to also incentivize the whole system. Teachers are doing something little, but it's having enormous impact, right? I mean, that's something we need to celebrate center. All right, you don't have to probably have done something very mighty, but the issues we have in Africa regarding the fact that students are not learning STEM, right, and attrition of students are leaving, dropping out of schools. A teacher who is doing something little but to address those issues, can we begin to clap for them, please? All right. Like my teachers back then last year, they were doing some things around addressing students showing up in school at all time. Guess what the teacher did? She made communities within the classroom, right? I get me now. So two students two students on a chair, right? So what she did was, okay, she told them, you guys are responsible for each other on this setup. So it's like a community within the classroom. So we have like different communities. So yeah, so whenever she doesn't come to class, you need to go and check up with her. Be your brother's keeper, be your sister's keeper. And guess what? That is having results. So can we begin to center and applaud this kind of practices? We can't just say this is nothing. It is something because the issue we have is that students are dropping out, but this practice is addressing student dropout. So teachers they're not even encouraging like this is so encouraging this sort of practices and all of that are things you can begin to do. And like I mentioned also, making teachers training to be holistic beyond just pedagogy and content, things regarding their emotional states and all of that should be mindset shift also should equally be incorporated into teachers training. And also what can the teachers do? So I'll give an example of what my teachers are doing from District 4 in Lagos. They have this teachers community. So they meet at CCUB, the one in co-creation, like you mentioned before. But it's like a teachers community, imagine teachers community run by teachers, spearheaded. They are the ones that do their trainings themselves. So what they do is basically, okay, we have a lot of, it's teachers within the same context, right? So because they're within the same context, they realize that they are facing the same issues, right? The student issues are like, maybe almost the same thing because our students, they told me back then, our students are mates, they go to cell before they come to school. So the issues are kind of the same. So what they do is they come together and begin to, okay, so this is the issue I'm having, they talk about those things. So what do you do when the student is saying that, when the student is saying, I'm hungry, I can't learn today, or he's just angry or something. So imagine discussing these issues amongst themselves. So that's even like a very good, imagine having such, what's it called? A safe space just to point these things out. Like people who are getting the same challenges like you are. So these are things teachers are doing, and it's just powerful the things they're doing. And they come together, so like, okay, I'm having this issue, but this is what I did. They share insights. They discuss, okay, who are these students? What can we do to help them? So and also one of them also told me that there was a time a teacher told him that can he come over to his own school just to help the student teach a particular concept. Can you now see now? One of them inviting the other person to come. And when he gets said, I'm not here because I'm better than a teacher, but I'm only here to support because we all are working as a team. So can you now see now? It is a kind of community that I'm even trying to think of, really delving into that community. I think I need a more, because the research I'm doing with UNESCO this time, I future that community in that research. But I want to delve deeply, just to know more about that. Because if you can begin to replicate such community, because when you understand the working model, okay, this is how this thing, but we can begin to, okay, build on some things and all of that, draw from research and all that, and begin to see how can we scale such a community. Well, these guys are really coming together. They meet once in a week. Sometimes they meet in person. Sometimes they meet on Zoom just to talk, to discuss. And that I advocate is one of the best training we can have. Beyond just having someone that is external like us, I call it the insider perspective magic. It does a lot of magic. Like this person, he knows us, man. He knows our student. Beyond somebody coming from Harvard University who doesn't even know anything about our context. But these guys know everything about the content and the students. So, and they are the ones co-creating knowledge themselves, talking about insight. So I believe that's a method model we need to begin to advance. All right, reimagine teachers training in that model. Can we get them to just come together? We can just provide the enabling environment and let's leave them. All right, incentivize, leave them to, because these guys are mastering that process already in District 4. So I still called one of them like some weeks ago, asking about the model and all of that, and I was like, wow, you guys are doing powerful things actually. So we need researchers, people like you, I mean, the podcast at this time, have people like this to come talk about that model, Yeah, I mean, I can connect with these guys, talk about that model. That's one way we can begin to help teachers also. These things are possible. Beyond just having somebody who is coming from MIT, forget about that. You guys can come together as a team within your context and do powerful things together. And also, they also share amongst themselves, opportunities. And guess what? These guys have collected awards, state best teachers, national, global awards amongst these guys. I met all of them last year. International. That's the way to keep them motivated. Like they are getting their awards. So one of them was sent by Lagos State government to Finland to with the students. The guys in Saboya Bade, chemistry teacher. The other one was got a global teacher award. She was in the news last year. Governor Sanwo-Olu tweeted about that. I met with her last year. The community they share, oh, apply for this, so apply, So these are things we can begin to do. Things are happening really, John. Things are happening at the grassroots, but can we begin to unpack all these things? You can't like the camera and put it under the table. You have to be on top of the table. So podcasts like this, let's invite people like that, to talk about their stories. So what can we learn about that model and how can we scale that model? All right, so that's all I'm going to share regarding that.
You could just go on sharing and sharing. At this point, let's talk about technology. Who talks without talking about technology in this age?
I don't know.
Technology and education. What have you seen and how is it going? Yeah, please.
John, I have a challenge with this question. I want us to talk even beyond today, because I've been asking these questions, because I'm going to ask you a question also. With
Okay.
the tech proliferation in this time and age, I mean, I don't have an answer yet. I'm afraid it's shifting the boundaries of education, right? Okay, how do I mean now? So, what constitutes knowledge? Let me give an instance now. So, before the advent of the calculator, right? Maybe one of the outcomes in maths back then could have been, okay, the ability to do 10 times, 9 manually, right? We have to see the workings, we are going to mark you on those work, the steps, right? But when the calculator came, knowledge shifted, you didn't have to show that working, right? Just compute. I mean, like press the whole thing in a calculator and you have the answer. 10 times 10 is 90, right? So something shifted, right? Okay, good. Also, a lot of things have shifted, right? I can begin to give examples. So that's like a thick invasion, right, into education that shifted the boundary of knowledge, what constitutes scholarship knowledge for us. Now we have AI. My God, my God, my God. I don't even know where to start from. So, I mean, that's what I know you would love me to speak to, right? AI is shifting things, disrupting things. In 2023 in Baltimore, Maryland, in the United States, I organized a panel discussion where we had faculty members, students, scholars in engineering education right, within the United States. And it was like an international conference back then. So the panel discussion was okay, what's the challenges and the opportunities ahead of us as a field engineering, STEM engineering now within this AI boom. What is knowledge for us? Because these are days students have assignments, even high school students, K-12 now. You can just go online, copy everything and paste it now. I mean, content knowledge now is just just a click away, like was said.
Right.
Whatever that thing is, I don't care the assignment, it's just a click away. You can and the question is can we fight tech in education? I'm afraid not. You know. So where do we stand after all? So what is knowledge scholarship for us in this? I don't even have the answer, John. I won't lie to you. I've been asking professor that let's talk. Oh, let us reason together. So interestingly, so my friends and I we are working on the research that is going to be presented somewhere at North Carolina next year in June around the same matter. Like it's just to start us on that road. Like, can we begin to think about what is knowledge after all? Because this is this. You see an essay. You did this essay. Awesome. AI generated. I mean, and so what is knowledge for us now? Because we've been speaking about the need for us to expand learning through using tech, right? Democratize learning through tech, and we've seen tech's ability to mediate all of the issues we've had, right? Thanks to tech, right? But now tech is now coming to take our holy grail, right? I mean, this is like our cheese. Don't move this cheese. Oh. It's moving that cheese of what knowledge is primarily for us, and that's an issue for us in academia. So what do we do now, John? That's a question to you. Training back
That's
to
a
you.
that's
Because
a
I mean, this
question.
is like the great issue around tech in education. It's like every other thing is like on that day. This is like the number one thing at this time. Teachers are complaining, professors are like, oh, what do we do again? And they're like getting tired. They're saying, okay, maybe let's them to use the tech, but let's begin to assess them on this and that area. But there's no consensus in the field within STEM and general across the world. No consensus. And people are like, so it's creating a lot of issue for professors at this time, and we don't even know where we stand at this time actually. But I believe it's a conversation we need to begin to have, and I am looking at that on a scholarly level, just to inquire to seek how was the shift in knowledge boundary back then when calculator came when not that technology when they came in I get to know. So what can we allow
How did
this
society adjust without being
adjust? So absolutely,
overly
I know that. How
disrupted?
do we adjust and understand? Because John, we are not adjusting well though. Because what precious thing goes to us. You see, content. So your
The
ability
scale
to
of
tell me
difference with
Osmos
AI is on another level.
it is something because your ability to tell me before now that Mr. Avignon, osmosis is this, that, and that. That's like, oh, you're a very good student, right? Awesome. 20 marks, 20 over 20. But now you can just copy and paste that thing from here now. So I can't even judge the ability again. So that's the issue for me.
But maybe that brings us to a point where we are reconsidering the concept of education and learning to say it maybe it's not just regurgitating absorbed information, but critical thinking to the point where you can create knowledge. That sounds sweet to say, but how does a 3-year-old create knowledge?
I don't know.
How does a 9-year-old create knowledge? Well, I mean, totally. Like you can, I know that. I mean, posing the question to me is even not it at all. You're the doctor here. You should get the mic. But this is also just throwing it here and there across the room, right? To say, well, there apparently is something about learning that we need to pay more attention to, especially in the global south, where we can say that clearly looking at the statistics of the world, we are largely behind. There's that need even now for us to be more interested in creative thinking, s- because more and more of what is going to happen in the world is that technology will be adopted more and more, and the requirement for humans will reduce. And the dependence of the disadvantaged population in the world on the advantaged population will increase.
Mm, mm,
Especially when you think about the fact that all of this evolution as well and creation is domiciled in those regions of the world. So you whatever we are always creating in the majorly black communities around the world are dependent, are like the top layer things. The great machine that is actually doing the thing, the models are created in those other communities. So eventually what happens to our regions is this massive dependence on what's being created. So if a typical creation is going to happen today now with regards to AI, you're not going to be building a model like ChatGPT. You're not going to be building the things that are running Claude. You're just going to be building a layer on top of that because they have gone light years ahead in terms of building what it takes. So whilst everybody will have to grapple with the new reality, they are more advantaged, they are more wealthy. I mean, they're wealthier, right? So they can more easily deal with the fact that, oh, we're not working, but we're still fine because we can afford to be paying all our children, all our citizens, the welfare of $1,000 every week. And then this other population is just living dependent. Don't mind me, but this is my economic regional way of thinking about this, the impact of all of this advancement. But if there's anything at all that I can say immediately, it's to say there is something about how we are learning and what we're learning that we need to pay attention to. Humans, we need to focus more on creation than absorption of knowledge. But the truth is also that we cannot take away learning before we then create. I mean, the more we
really.
learn, the better we are able to create. So maybe we're also looking at how can we ensure that people are still learning, you know, um, in spite of this massive disruption that
Yeah.
that AI brings.
Yeah,
I
thank you
think
so
it's
much
a
for
it's,
that.
it's a question, yeah.
It's a question. Yeah, thank you so much for that. Of course, I wasn't even expecting to even answer, but thanks for even helping my job this evening. All right, so talking about helping students on how to learn, I love that you said, okay, maybe it's not about regurgitation of knowledge, right, but about creating something, right? Ability to critique, to create. But how do you even, how do you assess a 5-year-old boy's ability to create something, right? So one thing, I was circle back to my research from last year, and there was something interesting I saw, John, which I won't be happy if I don't share that on this podcast. And that is the fact that the teacher that I told you was sponsored to Finland last year, and something he told me that one thing he realized was in research, researchers in Nigeria mentioned the fact that we can use Ayolokmo, that game, right? That
Yes,
our
that's true.
fathers used to play from way back. Ayolokmo to teach kids maths concept. But guess what he told me? He said, okay, but you know what? He realized that development is not even a culture. It's a cultural thing. It's a local thing to the student, right? But it's not within their generation, right? So there's a disconnect there and there. I'm trying to get at the point of, okay, I'm
Hmm.
driving on the point now. He said, you realize that even though it's something local to them, so we can't say, okay, that's culturally relevant pedagogy there, and then no, it's not because it's local to them, but it's not the culture, it's not the generational thing, it's not relevant to them because their generation, they don't even know what that is, they can't relate with it. What they know is, PS5 and all of these things, digital trends. I mean, these are things they know. All right. So there's something we call youth culture. That's one research I'm trying to get my hands dirty on now. The concept of youth culture now. So that somebody's in Nigeria in the global south doesn't even mean we have to confine everything regarding the education to using Ayolopons of this world, using Yoruba language like we advocate for, like why not just code switch? Mm-mm. We need to begin to center the concept of youth culture now. And what is that primarily? Tech has brought, has enabled, like a leveler. So kids back in San Francisco and kids back in Ubumosho, right, sorry to use, like can begin to engage on the same line, because tech has brought that leveler. Right. So the idea of youth culture is, the use of digital trends, all right, AI, digital tools and all of that, just to get students on that level. Because last year, one of my the teachers mentioned that the student told him that, hey, Mr. This and that, we want to learn this particular concept, they wanted that TikTok challenge. You know what the challenge was? I'm not the chemistry teacher, but I know that water boils at 100 degrees Celsius, like look at it though. These are students in a resource constraint, but they know all these things also. These are things that like tickle their fancy, John. So it's not about using Ayolokmo, using, of course, there's a place of that, right? But we need to reimagine the concept of culture. Cultural thing for Gen Z now is actually the tech boom. That's their culture. They all are born, they are tech natives and not tech migrant like people like us. When we were born, there was no such thing like we came into tech, but they were born into it. Even though they are born in Nigeria, global south, they have the capacity, all right, to engage with the best kids anywhere in the world. So it's about getting students on this level, engaging with them, on what I call the youth culture. That's their culture. Let's get them there. All right. So, and I believe it's important we get them on that level. And like you mentioned, there's a lot we can do as a nation. We don't always have to be catching up with the Western world, right? They built, yeah, we are just trying to, you know, when do we get to a time where we are just even creating something new? Like this is extremely novel, you know, that is not the case for us at this time, right? We are only building on what is existing, which is fine, of course, also. And maybe we can use our number to our advantage because we know now, I think sub-Saharan Africa, we have the highest number of population of any continent in the world, right? Of any region in the world, right? So that's massive resource, there and there. So what if we are beginning to, the little we have, begin to expose our kids to some of these things, who told us that we can't have, innovators amongst them. All right, so I think we can also use that number to our advantage. Having numbers is a big deal in the 21st century, right? But we know numbers is equally not a big deal when you have tech, right? Because, like you mentioned, AI can do like do we even need it, like so our number being the strength, we can equally argue that hey, is it still strength for us? That's not what we are saying, is it still strength for us? With all of this tech boom and all that. So it's I can speak to both sides. What I believe it's important. Where I'm going to end that question is the need for teachers to begin to reimagine. Because teachers talk about okay, we need to use culture and all of that, But culture is just let's go beyond using Yoruba language, using I understand, but these are things that students resonate with the most at this time. The idea of the youth culture, digital trends, all right, AI, these are things, I was told of a student in the southeastern part of the country, Nigeria, who, what's it called now? She was able to produce a song from AI. I mean, I think that was the first time I ever knew that you could even use AI to produce a song. I didn't know that was even possible. I didn't
I've
even
not,
know.
I've not,
This
I've
is
not, I've not thought about that, but I'm
Yeah,
not
this is a
surprised.
student in southeastern Nigeria, because she had so. There's no limit to what we can achieve with these kids in all honesty, right? So let's begin to go beyond just okay limiting culture to okay just Yoruba language, Hausa and Igbo, and all of these things. You a lot more to teach maths. No, no. Let's broaden the concept of culture, right? And more importantly than all of those things at this time, kids want to be engaged on that line that I call the youth culture, digital trends, AI, bring it to the so and that is also like another thing that is going to shift in the next couple of years, Teachers training is going to be we need to reimagine that kind of teachers training with the concept of AI now. I'm glad my teachers told me last year that one of the things they do is before they go to the classroom, okay, they prompt AI, okay, I want to teach this concept. How best can I teach it? Brother, that's teachers training there and there. It doesn't come bigger in all honesty. It doesn't come bigger, right? This is your body, right? So I can give you 101 ways to teach, osmosis in biology in a way that they can understand. That's training there for the teachers. So I believe the ground is shifting, and we just have to be flexible, right? to accumulate the things that are given way at this time, and not to think that our jobs are threatened or anything's going to happen to us. But we can't fight this tech boom. We can only adjust ourselves to accommodate the realities it's bringing our way.
Yeah, and the next thing, of course, as we begin to uh, wind up on the conversation on the podcast today, is to begin to look at the future. Of course, I'm sure that some of the things that you've mentioned will come in tandem with that already, but just maybe you want to stretch us further into what you're seeing in the future of education. And I'd be happy to know what's also in your future as far as education is concerned.
So I think one thing I'm looking at in the future, because I've seen this tech disruption to education, and I'm kind of curious to see, like I mentioned to you back then, what constitutes knowledge in this time and age, right? So I'm beginning to think about research areas around this area. Like, hey, this is one area I can begin to really delve into, right? So it's the end to the whole research is just to impart teachers that, hey, beyond whatever we think we know about the students, this age is redefining a lot of things at this time. So this is where student needs to be met now. This is where we need to meet them now. So I am doing a research at this time, trying to explore students use AI to learn in across STEM fields. So myself and a couple of scholars in the United States here. So that's the research I told you I'm going to present at North Carolina HTM High Schools. And it's meant to lead us down a road because we want to begin to inquire to begin to see what constitutes knowledge for us. So, can we begin to look at what scholarship is in this time and age? We know research is all about rigor, right? But rigor is now being threatened with AI, right? So, how much of rigor can we allow to go? So that's an area I'm beginning to really get drawn into AI space and the disruption it's bringing to education. And more importantly, my space is the K-12 space. I love the K-12 space over and above it. And it's Sub-Saharan K-12 that is like my lovely birthday. I love it. I love, yeah, I mean, that's the sweet spot of me. I love Sub-Saharan African and K-12 space so much. So I want to get myself into that research area to be to see, okay, and also, like I mentioned, we need to begin to reimagine the concept of teacher training in this time and age. AI has come, do we need Vineyard to travel all the way to Nigeria to do a training again? So what is now left? What can we do? How can we leverage these tools we have with us? So I think things will begin to shift even in the global south in the next couple of years. So it's just for us to begin to see how we can get ourselves ready, and not be left out eventually. So a lot of things are going to shift, and I think we have to brace up for the challenge, otherwise we might be left behind. So that's the future that we're envisioning, and the need for us to prepare for that future. Students and teachers, we need to be ready for that future that is upon us.
And in order not to be left behind of the future that is coming, people like you are championing the course by helping us with research that helps us understand what is being, what is going, and what shall come. Thank you, Vion. It's been such a wonderful time having a conversation with you on education, your love for it, and what's possible.
Thank you so much, John. You got me today to talk about what matters most to me. Of course, career-wise now. I mean, I love talking about this time and again. And I don't think I've spoken about education already to the extent that on any platform. I've had some, forums where I spoke a lot, but not this, stretch. You really stretched me today, your questions. And thanks also for helping me to think, because I did some reflection while you were talking, like, okay, trying to question my decisions from way back and all that. I mean, I really love that.
I
Thank you
think
so
I'm the
much.
fortunate one. Thank you very much.
Ah,
Thank you very much. Surely we're here to tell the stories of people who are turning things around and bringing about the future that we desire as far as education is concerned. And it's been with Via Dancer today. Thank you and catch you on the next one. And this is where we draw the curtain on today's episode of Peel, powered by Teacher. Do join us again.